best music.
I like to hear the news updates.
It's on the Odyssey app.
Wherever I'm going, whatever I'm doing.
Your audio toolbox.
I love it because it's so portable.
Gotta download the Odyssey app for sure.
From KDAWN.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Going bell to bell with the best in professional wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's get to all the exciting pro wrestling action and bring on the host. Here is Mark Hoke.
Good morning, Las Vegas. What's going on? Welcome to the Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM, the talk of Las Vegas. Very happy to have you joining us today. Wow, it is somewhat of an overwhelming day, I think, for a lot of pro wrestling fans as we say goodbye to our good friend and one of the all-time greats, John Felix Anthony Cena, who last night wrestled his final match in Washington, D.C. on Saturday night's main event, and his 23-year run in pro wrestling is over. And it's, I was watching the match again today, and boy, I'll tell you, it's hard to not get a little choked up. And when you think about just how integral John was to the world of pro wrestling, over these past 20 plus years, I mean, so many memories, so many unbelievable things we'll get to talk about during the show. But it is hard to figure out really where to start. We're talking about John Cena, a transcendent personality, not just in pro wrestling, but in acting and culture. And I mean, hey, you can't see me. Everybody knows that. But amazing night, even though there are some people that weren't happy. But I'll tell you what we're going to do is we will start off with what happened yesterday and take it from there. We're going to be talking a lot about John during these next 2 hours here on KDAWN. And by the way, if you're out there on KDAWN right now, I certainly do appreciate it. If you haven't downloaded the Odyssey app, you can listen to us anytime, anywhere, any place. Just get that app on your phone, AUDACY. And maybe it'll help you get over the pain of saying goodbye to John Cena. And we're also streaming on X, YouTube, and Facebook, so you can hop in there, X at Mark Hoke Show, and Facebook and YouTube, The Mark Hoke Show, and you can interact with the show. Say hi to everybody. Give us your opinions on what's going on. We're hoping Coach Rosie's going to get here in a little bit. We're going to talk to him too. But let's just break down Saturday night's main event last night, shall we? It was an interesting evening. Not just on the John Cena front, but man, we had some finishes. I'm not really sure how everybody's feeling about it right now. Of course, we started off with Cody Rhodes, the WWE champion, taking on NXT champion Oba Femi, who, I don't know how people don't know about Oba. Now, maybe it's just because he's been hiding on NXT. They haven't really put him in the spotlight on the main roster yet. But I got to see him when they were doing an NXT card over at the UFC headquarters. That man, for having wrestled so few matches, he's a monster. And he gets a lot of ring psychology, understands it. Well, he and Cody go at it last night and ends up in a DQ as Drew McIntyre, who I don't know, man. He's suspended, he's disgruntled, and then just pops up for more. That's what he does. But comes in and jumps on Cody and the match ends in a DQ. They end up beating up Drew McIntyre, but a somewhat unsatisfying finish. But I got to say, what'd you expect? Did you? I mean, would it have been cool for Oba to win? Yeah. Did you really think they were going to let him beat Cody Rhodes last night? No way. No way. But a great showing for both guys. Like I said, just a little dissatisfying ending to the match. Sol Rocca defeats Bayley. So Bayley takes another one for the team. And we know Sol Rocca is going to be a superstar. Even though I got to tell you, she's got to rely a little less on the gymnastics stuff. Some of it looks absolutely spectacular, but some of it, I just don't know. It doesn't. She's doing things that I don't think if you were in a fight that you would have too much of a trouble dismantling in a battle. So, but she, I mean, incredible athlete, and she's going to go a long way. But the loss by Bayley, oh my God, Bayley, you can just tell she wants out. You just feel like her best friend is doing all these crazy things over in AEW and around the world. And, they started with the voices thing with her and let it die. I don't know. I feel kind of bad for Bayley. She's one of the 4 horsewomen cast-offs here for sure. AJ Styles, Dragon Lee beat Javon Evans, Leon Slater. Just one unfortunate thing happens that AJ slipped getting ready to do a phenomenal for him. Huge props to the young Javon Evans. Just saw AJ fall and covered him. Smart. That is ring presence beyond your years. And then they just reworked everything in the ring and got it done. But AJ Styles, Dragon Lee knock off the young talented duo of Javon Evans and Leon Slater. And then we get to the final match of the night. Gunther and John Cena. And Gunther comes out mega heat on this dude. Man, they were giving him the business all night. It was not good. I mean, it was good in terms of getting heat, but boy, nobody wanted him to win. Nobody wanted him to win. Cena comes out. They kind of delayed his introduction a little bit, and the place went berserk. Absolutely berserk. And John's doing his entrance. He's saying hi to some guys at the side at ringside, like Mark Henry and Rob Van Dam and so many others that had taken the time to get there at ringside. I did love how he left Nick Khan hanging. That was kind of funny. But we get to that main event, and they duke it out for 23 minutes, and it was a great combination of Gunther's Matt style and John's being a hero thing. But eventually John Cena taps out, and he had not submitted in a match for 20 years. But Gunther taps out John Cena. Never give up, but John gave up. And if you don't think that that's going to be a storyline for Gunther for the rest of his career, wow. After the match, John's taking his bows. Everybody comes out of the locker room in a scene reminiscent back to around 2005 when he and I think it was The Rock put their championship belts on Hulk Hogan. They did the same. Punk and Cody did the same thing for John. So they put his belts on. He's taken in all the love from the fans. And, but there was one interesting moment, and I got to get Coach Rose on here too. He's in the house. But one interesting moment was when Triple H hit the ring, they booed the hell out of him out there. Holy cow. Not happy with the booking that Cena lost. But Coach, glad to have you with us from Ad-Free Shows.
Thank you.
But when it comes down to it, well, and we'll just finish up. John did his thing, walked out of the ring, saluted everybody before he left. But Coach, a lot of people were banging on Triple H for having John lose this match, but you and I both know that it is a time-honored tradition in professional wrestling that you pass it on, you pay it forward, you let somebody get that win, get the rub, and Gunther's going to get a lot out of this. So I don't see what I understand the sentimentality, especially for the people in the building, man. You didn't want to see John come there to see John lose, but it's the right decision.
Yeah, it was the right decision, but in 2025, some traditions can be broken. Women don't have to stay at home and cook and clean anymore, thank God, because of traditions changing. So, why not let a guy go out on the sword and win in his last match? Doesn't have to always be the way it was, but I think last night's finish was really appropriate because he tapped. It was only his 5th time that he tapped, which gives Gunther the push that he might need coming back. And I think he is going to also retire Brock Lesnar. So I can see him having a three-peat of 3 WWE icons by retiring Goldberg, by retiring Cena. And my prediction is down the road, he's going to retire Brock.
That people have been waiting for that match, and that is a terrific point. I was going to mention it later in the show, but apparently people are already starting to talk about Lesnar possibly hanging it up at SummerSlam, around SummerSlam time next year. So, that's interesting that Gunther could get the three-peat. But let's talk about Gunther and where he is. Is he now the top heel in WWE?
Depends who you talk to. A lot of people would say Drew McIntyre is, but when it comes down to physicality, when it comes down to matches, when it comes down to someone that could just destroy somebody at any given time, that's Gunther. He's that monster right now that has strength and abilities that other guys don't have. He survived a lot last night in that match and came out on top. So yeah, he's definitely the number one heel when it comes to in-ring action.
Yeah, and the rub he's going to get off this is unbelievable. So good for him. Let's we got some comments in the chat box about this, about Saturday night's main event. First, Javon Campbell 8357 says Oba versus Drew is going to be a banger. Oh, that'll be fun if that happens. I will give points there. Tube Man 316 says stop blaming Triple H. Now the WWE fans want The Rock, Vince McMahon, and now even Tony Khan to do WWE creative, but TK does AEW creative. Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, I don't think that it's fair to bang on Triple H about this finish. Like I said, I think it was the right thing to do. But Javon Campbell also saying it sort of seems Triple H isn't noticing what the fans want or like. Instead, he looks like he's telling the fans what they like. Well, Nick Khan has said as much. We don't pay attention to that. We don't pay attention to what the fans want. We do what we want to do. We're WWE. We're TKO, man. Is that the right attitude, Coach?
I don't know. If you take a look at the two different promotions, I would consider Sting at the same level as John Cena. And Tony booked Sting to go over, and not only to go over, but to go over as a champ. And you see the opposite with WWE. Does that make it right? Does that make it wrong? I don't know. Just two different philosophies. But in both matches, I enjoyed the finishes. So it's really up to your taste. I am a traditionalist, so I do believe a guy should go out on his shoulders or tap out. But I was also really excited when Sting got his championship belt in AEW and went off you know, on a pink puffy cloud of winness.
Yeah.
And in both instances they were great finishes, and in both instances there were people that were happy and there were people that were sad. That's the thing about professional wrestling and any type of story driven entertainment venue or aspect is there's always going to be people that are upset and there's always going to be people that are happy. That's why we have movie reviews. That's why we have Rotten Tomatoes. That's why we have podcasts and posting. We're an opinion driven society. So what I would suggest is, if whatever you like, just go with it. If you're an AEW sicko and you like matches instead of stories, go for that. If you're into more of a story driven line of wrestling, maybe go to WWE or TNA. But whatever it is, we got plenty of wrestling to enjoy. So there's no point to getting your knickers in a twist, because in 2 weeks from now, we're not even going to be thinking about John Cena's last match. We're going to be on the road to Riyadh for the Royal Rumble, and we're going to all be trying to predict who's going to be coming in, who's going to be number 30, what people are going to be talking about the WrestleMania matches and starting to make predictions there. So this is just a blip on the radar. But John, you had a great career. I teared up after the match. Not because of the finish, but just because of what John has meant to professional wrestling. He was the bridge from the Attitude Era. That could have gone really bad if they didn't have someone like John Cena that could bring the families and the kids back in. What he's done for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, and just what he's done for the wrestling community by always being there, not being a source of controversy, being a good role model for youth and for the hustle, loyalty, and respect. He's what a professional wrestler should be, and I want to thank John for his time.
650 Make-A-Wishes. Do you
That's
realize that? That is almost 2 years of getting up every day and doing a Make-A-Wish. It's almost 2 years. That's given of yourself. That is for sure. Yeah. So John Cena out. And when we come back, well, now that John's gone, what's next? You were talking a little bit about the road to the Rumble, but WWE is kind of riding John Cena here for most of the year. What do they do now? Because there's some problems out there for WWE they're trying to fix. And we'll talk about it with Coach Rosie and myself, Mark Hoke, when we return on the Mark Hoke Show. Stick around, everybody.
Step inside it. This is the Mark Hoke Show.
The Mark Hoke Show.
Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
And we are back on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM. Talk of Las Vegas, best in pro wrestling news and entertainment. Coach Rosie and I bringing it to you. Well, now that this massive boost to WWE's ticket sales is over, as the John Cena cash cow has now left the pasture, there's some interesting things that I think that WWE's got to take a look at, and they know they've got some issues right now. Some ticket sales out of Mohegan Arena in Pennsylvania. They only sold 5,100 tickets, Coach, for that show. Triple H getting booed heavily, and I think some people are not happy with the booking. You also look at the WWE is acknowledged, talking to bodyslam.net, that they say they need help on the creative and talent side for SmackDown. They feel like they're running into some issues there. Who's going to take the reins at this point? How do you fix some of these problems? I think the ticket sales one is they've just been charging too much. But the other thing is, if the product isn't attracting people, what do you do? I mean, they've really, I think at times they've took some of the people that they were making up and coming and then kind of smashed them down a little bit. So it's a very limited amount of people at the top. I'm kind of at a loss to figure out what they need to do. But Coach, what are you seeing out of all this?
It's hard to describe because, they were riding such a high from the year before. Things just kind of seem flat this year, whether it's been storylines or crowds or, a lot of the same matches just being rematched after rematched after rematched. They need to get an infusion of some of that NXT talent. They've been using Javon. They used Oba the other night. They can bring up Ethan Page. There's some women that can compete. I don't know how Bailey did against Sol Roca last night, but Sol's a great talent. The talent in WWE is kind of getting long in the tooth. And when that happens, it kind of becomes too predictable. People get tired of seeing the same routine, the same format. We've seen Drew do these run-ins now for practically 2 years, so there's not really much shock value in it anymore. So I don't know who is in charge of SmackDown with the storylines, but I loved it when Road Dogg was booking it.
He's been booking it, and it's been a little shaky.
Okay. Well, I don't know what they can do about that. I mean, they have plenty of good wrestling minds in there, but I would go with the younger talent. But, Cody is still the man when it comes to being the top baby face, and he's got the love of the fans and the kids. They just need some people that he can go up against and can battle, because it's not very good for him right now.
I think that one of the big problems is, you're coming off the Bloodline storyline, which was, just an epic run there for WWE. But, if you don't have the stories that are captivating people, because look, this is an athletic soap opera. It really is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if you can have all the great wrestling you want, but if you don't have anything behind it, it's just a bunch of people getting in a ring and doing moves. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't emotionally connect. And it's got to start at the top. You look at the Hogan era, and man, they made sure that you connected with Hogan, and you saw all these bad guys doing all these terrible things to him, and it pulled you in. And the thing for Cody this year, yes, he got into the whole thing with John, but that kind of turned out to be a little flat because nobody wanted John to be a heel. So it kind of put Cody in a weird spot, and he hasn't had that feud. You know what I mean? And if your world champion doesn't have that feud to really pull people in. Well, that's your guy at the top. So what happens from there? You know,
Yeah.
and so it's a thing where I think you've put him against Drew McIntyre and had Drew come in a bunch. No, I thought the last time he wrestled Drew, they should have put Drew over. You know, it would have really drawn some attention. It makes Drew look good, but you know, every time Drew gets his shot, he loses.
Yeah.
You know, you said he's your top heel, but you know, if he's not considered a viable threat, well, what's next? Now, I think there may be some hope on the horizon when Kevin Owens gets back. I think that'll be fascinating. I think if Jericho gets back, I don't know if they want to use him at the top or not, but you know, there's some possibilities there with Chris and some other people too. Look, Obafemi would be fun to pull up, but they stuck the NXT title back on him for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit of a mess at the top. Now, one thing that I think they do have going for him right now is Ilya Dragunov. Oh my God, that match that he had with Ciampa on SmackDown this week, awesome. And possibly revisiting the Gunther Ilya Dragunov NXT feuds.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing
absolutely
that WWE has always done well is from top to bottom layer stories that everybody enjoyed. I think if you asked 10 wrestling fans who all the major champions are in WWE, I would say maybe 1 out of 10 would be able to name every single champion, either because they have too many titles or they just don't have quality guys holding the titles. So if they can build up that thing, because back in the 80s, Hulk was my guy, but I followed the Macho Man in the Intercontinental Championship at the same rate that I followed the World Championship with. The tag team division in WWE is not even subpar. It's below subpar. So if they would really build that back up, the women's division, weak as well. So if you really want to get a cornucopia of quality wrestling, you have to build up the stories for all of your titles, because not everybody is a world title fan. A lot of people fall in love with the Intercontinental or the Women's World Champion or the Tag Team Champions or I mean, you name it. But right now there is no layering of stories to make all the titles seem important. A lot of times there's just a championship match just to have one. I was hoping last night that Javon and Leon would beat AJ and Dragon Lee, but that didn't happen. I think that would have really infused some athleticism and some pizzazz in the tag team titles, but for one reason or another, it didn't happen.
Yeah, and you know, Dominic Mysterio is sitting out there and he's starting to really come into his own. But yeah, I mean, you start looking at some of the champs right now. Well, you know, it's AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, which was kind of a throw together team. I mean, no offense to CM Punk, but he's getting long in the tooth, and you kind of can't tell who he's feuding with right now. You know, It's like he's messing around with the Vision, but then there's other people out there too, and it's like, okay, what's going on there? You know, women's division, the women's tag title situation isn't too bad out there. You know, Maxine Dupree won the Intercontinental title. Stephanie Vaquera, I just don't know how excited people are about her. That's Monday Night Raw. You know, I think that, you know, we mentioned a couple of times there's been, I think, 16 or 17 title changes since September. So they're trying to get some new blood in there, but I don't know if it's working, man. I think for SmackDown, a Dragunov Gunther feud might reignite things a little bit. So I don't know. It's a little bit messy, but WWE. But I think the other thing too, that WWE with charging these high ticket prices has kind of made people feel like, you know, you don't care about us, you just want to make a buck. And that doesn't work in the entertainment business. You know, the same things happen in movie theaters and so on. You know, you got to draw people in, and if you're not at the right price point, you know, that kills you, Coach.
Yeah, I mean, you got to choose. You're going to buy a dozen eggs, or you're going to buy tickets to a WWE show. Now, back in the day when they were priced appropriately, you know, we made sacrifices to go to the big shows. But now, with them being so astronomical, a ticket to a major event can practically be 2 months of rent for somebody.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make logical sense. Traditionally, wrestling fans have not been part of the higher economic demographic. Historically, I'm not saying that wrestling fans are broke, but we're hardworking people, and we're not millionaires, we're not billionaires, so they need to price it appropriately. Maybe lower the prices at the snack bar. Their T-shirts are still about $45 or $50 a pop. So there's a lot of ways that they could maybe cut some. I mean, if they cut the prices on some of their apparel and some of their T-shirts, that would help to drive a lot of sales, and would also drive storylines because people buy T-shirts of the fans of the wrestlers that they're in love with. That's good marketing for the program, and it's going to get people more invested in their storylines because they got their shirt on at the show and they're going to support their guy. But right now, you're spending $50 to $75 on a shirt, $100 to $200 on a ticket, $30 on parking, at least $30 to $50 on food. So even if you're just going to a regular SmackDown or Monday Night Raw, you're out the pocket $500 for 2 to 3 hours of entertainment. It
Yeah.
doesn't make economic sense.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned about the T-shirts and merchandise, man. That's advertising.
You're
That's
right.
advertising your product. And if people are like, "Oh my God, you want $50 for a T-shirt," it's like, I'm not spending $50 for a T-shirt. So,
No.
and then that takes that person wearing that shirt off the street.
Right.
I mean, Nick Khan, as great as he's done in sponsorships and in these TV and streaming deals, I think he's just not quite in tune, like you said, with the wrestling fan of where they are financially. So WWE's got some work to do now that John Cena has said goodbye. I'm glad you're here, Coach, because I did want to throw this one out to you. Is John Cena the wrestler of the year? Can you think of somebody who has had a bigger influence, been a bigger draw than John this year? That should he win the PWI award and be the wrestler of the year in 2025?
No, but I can't really, without thinking about it, come up with a logical answer that would top him. But his in-ring work was fair. His story was, when he became a heel, that was a flop. And WWE, for some reason, I found out this week that John wanted to do 220 dates.
Yeah.
And they said, "No, we only need you for 36. So, there was some kind of disconnect there. He did have a great year. It could have been better, in my opinion, but he did provide a lot of moments for a lot of people, and gave the fans one last shot at seeing John Cena. And we're going to see him plenty and hear him plenty on Honda ads and television shows and movies. So he's not just going to disappear. So all you John Cena fans, you'll have your fill of John in the future. And I'm excited for that because he does make a good character in movies and television shows.
Yeah, he signed a 5-year ambassador deal for WWE too. So it's not like John's going to be gone. But I gotta say, I didn't think I would, but I'm going to miss him in the ring. I really am. It's there's just something about that guy that just he knows how to get you excited to watch pro wrestling. And even when you think he's not going to be able to do it, and there's no way he's going to pull this out, and Lord knows he's had to do it quite a bit. I mean, that company was on his back for a long time. He just always found a way. So, it's going to be fascinating to see how that goes. And you were mentioning about John Cena's tour, that it was somewhat up and down. He had some amazing matches in there, had some ones that I think people would like to forget, like the the WrestleMania match, even though he won the championship, was kind of the Brock Lesnar one. Uh, do you think? Do you think though overall it was a success?
Yes. Overall, I do think it was a success, except for the heel turn. Uh, Wherever he went, it was sold out. Wherever he went, memories were made. T-shirts were sold, towels were sold, smiles were put on faces. Um, but WWE could have done so much more to take it from about a 6 or 7, in my opinion, to a 10. So it was average to good, but it could have been beyond excellent.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing about the heel turn was it was just done to try to sell tickets for Elimination Chamber. They were Nick Khan has admitted this. We were not looking good there. We thought, well, we got to make a splash. Let's get John in there and do something big. And he and The Rock called him up, and John agreed to it. But it in a long haul, it didn't really pan out. I mean, people were screaming, "Oh, this is the second greatest heel turn of all time, maybe the greatest heel turn of all time." And I was like, I don't know about that. And it just wasn't his personality. It didn't click per se. I mean, you and I were both at WrestleMania, and the feeling of the fans after he won that match, and just the way it went, just didn't feel right. It just
Yeah,
didn't
no,
feel right.
and the whole Travis Scott thing, and
Ugh.
they didn't really do like the actual event at Elimination Chamber when he did turn. That was an amazing heel turn, but it did not go anywhere from there. We didn't see any kind of teaming up with The Rock because he gave that cutthroat thing, and it just left too many holes. And the whole Travis Scott thing was a total bomb, which alienated a lot of wrestling fans. So if I was The Rock, Rock, I love you. I love you, Rock, but stay away from wrestling for a couple years. Just collect your dividends checks from TKO. Support your daughter in NXT. But if you could, on behalf of myself and maybe some other wrestling fans, stay out of the creative part of it because what you did and helped to orchestrate, is going to go down in history as a flop.
Yeah, and
So,
don't forget that he orchestrated that whole thing with trying to have him and Roman at
right,
the previous WrestleMania that just turned into a fiasco there as well, 2 WrestleManias ago. So yeah, I agree with you. What the Rock, you got movies, man. Do your thing. Do your thing, get your
right.
check. All right, Coach. I know you got to get going. Real quick, remind everybody about ad-free shows.
Yep, it's a new year coming around, so we got Top Guy Rumble coming up. We're all going to get together somewhere. It's going to be announced soon for the Royal Rumble and a wrestling training camp. So if you've ever wanted to feel what it's like to go through a 2 or 3 day uh, fantasy camp for professional wrestling, check us out over at Ad Free Shows because it's going to be a tremendous event.
All right, sounds good, Coach Rosie. Thanks for joining us. And when we come back, we got more about John Cena. We've got a whole lot of interesting AEW news we're going to be getting to throughout the show. We have new women's tag champs, and I was wrong. I picked the
And I
wrong
was
team.
right.
You were
Yep.
right, Coach.
Mhm.
And so much more, like news about Allegiant Stadium, too. They made some bank this year. Holy cow. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Ready to hit the road in a new ride? Stop your grinding with Brooks Nygaard.
1015 FM KDAWN.
You're listening to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Vegas, The Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Now, here again is Mark Hoke.
All right, let's keep the party rolling here. The best in pro wrestling news and entertainment here on the Mark Hoke Show as we celebrate the end of the career of John Cena, a cultural icon as well as certainly one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. You would say the greatest of all time, I guess, maybe. At least that's what they say in the introductions. I don't know about that, but John, absolutely an incredible career and wrapping up on Saturday night's main event. Oh my, what an evening. But I got to tell you though, I asked Coach Ferruzzi before he had to roll out of here about if Cena was Wrestler of the Year. I was thinking about this morning, and I can't name anybody who had a better year than John Cena, who was more influential this year than John Cena. I don't know. I can't think of anyone that had sustained success all year long, which John did. He won a world championship. He won the Intercontinental Championship. He has this massive retirement event. Had the heel turn, and whether you liked it or not, it got everybody's attention. Now, who else is out there that had a better year than John? It's not Jey Uso and or Gunther or CM Punk. Seth Rollins gets hurt. You go to AEW. Joe just won the title. Hangman Adam Page. Yeah. Okay, run for 4 or 5 months. Toni Storm. But she lost her title. I don't know. It really, when you think about it, and it's to a point, it's incomprehensible that John would be at the top of this list, but I think he is. I think he is, and I'm not saying that with recency bias. Yes, it's for us fans, it's pretty emotional for John to be gone, but this is from a sincere analytical position. John Cena, I think, may have been the guy for the year. Who knows? But the second hour, we're going to kind of take a look back on John's career, try to, parse through some great moments. And we're going to be talking about a lot of things in AEW as well, because the Continental Classic continues to roll on, and good Lord, they're getting crazy loco over there. Well, hold on. In the chat box, Javon Campbell, what? Harley Cameron had a great year. Dude, really? Really? You are going to put Harley Cameron's year against John Cena? I know, he's probably just having fun, but she did have a great year because they are, her and Willow Nightingale, the Babes of Wrath, are the new AEW Women's World Champions. Good for them. I wanted them to win, but I couldn't pick them. I'm sorry, I couldn't pull the trigger on that. I had my timeless love bombs. But yeah, awesome for Willow and Harley. And boy, you think about where both of them came from. I mean, Willow came off the indies and had a couple of great matches, and they did that in-ring contract for her, and Harley had just started in the business. Had only a couple of matches when she started in AEW. For those two to get to where this is, and I couldn't be happier for them. The one thing that I'm disappointed about with this is that you had two teams, at least for now, that are baby faces. You're not going to get a feud coming out of the tournament. Maybe you will. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you have Tony and Mina go after him again. I don't know. But And really you can't count on the Megan Bain and Shafir team because Shafir was a substitute for Penelope. So I don't know. I just would have loved to have seen a little bit more out of that in the end. Just kind of wanted a rule breaking heel team to at least get to the final on that. But we'll see. I mean, they've got enough teams there that they're going to be able to push it for a while. So yeah, there you go. A lot of fun. What two man 13 in the chat box. Turkey still wants the Rock for Mania 43. I got to tell you, Dwayne's got to get back in shape. Because if you saw him recently, he dropped a ton of weight and muscle mass for a movie that he filmed. I mean, he looked like a skinny old man. It's crazy. Crazy. So the Rock's gonna have to get back in the weight room, but a little steroid jerk ain't gonna hurt, I guess. Rock can do what he wants, but it will take him a lot of time to get back into wrestling shape. We talked about a little bit of where's WWE go from here. Do you decide, what, we're going to try and lean on the Rock and, the nostalgics are working, or do you actually have the guts to put things in the hands of some of these younger wrestlers? Because AJ's going away, Brock's going away. You're not going to be able to keep bringing these guys back forever. Roman's still hanging out there, but, Seth's hurt again. It'll be interesting, the future of WWE. All right, everybody, stick around. We got another hour of this coming up as we continue talking about John Cena. Yeah. What's going on in the AEW Continental Classic? Some changes. And the Dynamite Diamond Ring's up for grabs, too. Brace yourselves. Can MJF make it 6 in a row? We'll find out. Stick around, everybody. Follow us on X at Mark Hoke Show, Facebook, YouTube, The Mark Hoke Show, and join us in the live stream. We will be right back.
Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join the Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.
Stand Up to Cancer's vehicle donation program makes it easy to turn your unwanted vehicle into funding to support innovative cancer research. This research leads to new treatments for patients right now. Donate your car today. Visit standuptocancer.org/cars to learn more.
Now through December 14th, visit any Terribles in Southern Nevada and help make a child's holiday brighter. Donate $1, $3, or round up your change at the register to support the 98.5 KLUC Toy Drive. All donations benefit help of Southern Nevada.
At Sam & Ash Injury Law, we know every injury case is personal and every client matters. We care, we help, you win. It's that simple. That's why we've won over $500 million for our clients. So if you've been injured in a crash, call Sam & Ash, 702-303-0333, or visit samandashlaw.com. Sam & Ash, because you deserve what's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Las Vegas. This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Going bell to bell with the best in professional wrestling news, entertainment, and lots of Sin City surprises from inside the squared circle. Now, let's get to all the exciting pro wrestling action and bring on the host. Here is Mark Hoke.
And we are back for hour number 2 of the Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM. Show number 251. Oh, my God. That's pretty crazy. But we want to thank all of you for supporting the show. Always get those numbers and generally pretty happy about it, especially for a Sunday morning. Not the easiest thing to do. But we are thrilled to have you joining us wherever you are on 101.5 FM, the Talk of Las Vegas, whether it's the Odyssey app, which if you haven't downloaded that app, just type in AUDACY, and you will get to hear shows on KDAWN, including this one, also from all over 220 stations in the Odyssey network. So, man, you can't go wrong. Get that app right now, AUDACY. And also joining us on our live stream on YouTube, X, and Facebook. YouTube and Facebook is the Mark Hoke Show, and X is at Mark Hoke Show. And, you know, we certainly do appreciate all of you tuning in. We've been talking, of course, about the retirement of John Cena. The last time was then, I guess, as he says goodbye yesterday on Saturday night's main event at the Capital One Arena in Washington, D.C. He loses his match to Gunther. So the Ring General retires a second major pro wrestling star. He took out Gunther last year. Goldberg last year, earlier this year. Now says goodbye to John Cena. And Coach brought it up in the last hour. Is he going to be the one to get rid of Brock Lesnar too? Good Lord. That's a pretty impressive list. But and just some comments left over from the last hour. Two Men 316 says Mercedes Moné crashing out on AEW and Ring of Honor and now doesn't care about Cena's retirement, wants to retire in AEW, may have ownership in AEW. Jesus, that's a lot. That's a lot. Of course, Mercedes cares about John retiring. Come on. But, you know, buying in, good business investment, I think. Little AEW partial ownership. She's got to be happy there, and that's why we mentioned Bayley maybe coming over there too. I think I think she's got about a little over a year on her contract. I think she's gone. I think she is going to head over to AEW and just tear things up with her best friend and have a great time. So, well, when you look back at the career of John Cena, and you know, I was kind of going through a lot of history with John. You know, the 17 world championships and some of the ones that were just absolutely incredible. But there were a lot of memories that you have of John that, you know, a lot of times, to be very frank, he had some bad moments for him that ended up being iconic moments in pro wrestling history. And, you know, look, and John wasn't perfect. John would pull out that golden shovel and bury some people every once in a while. Was not happy at WrestleMania 30 when he beat Bray Wyatt. But, you know, he held off the temptation of Bray bringing out the monster. I think that would have been so much fun. That is such a what-if moment for me in pro wrestling. Because if you don't remember what happened, Bray Wyatt and his family were trying to get John to basically do a heel turn. And he had the chance to do it during the match. John had a chair in his hands and had a chance to just smack Bray in the back, and he wouldn't do it. And ended up winning that match and holding on to the championship. And a lot of people would have been fascinated to see that. And it kind of played into that Firefly Funhouse match that they had at WrestleMania, which was, a film fantasy flick, taking John through his career and messing with his head. Saw John in an NWO shirt and everything. That would have been, if you were going to do a heel turn for John, that was the time. But WWE, and I understand why WWE didn't want to do it. It was, John's too popular. He's drawing in the kids. I mean, anywhere you went for matches, and I can vouch for this personally, you would hear "Let's Go Cena" in a lot of, shall we say, higher octave voices, which would then be responded to by "Cena sucks, John Cena sucks," and just it's like, okay, I think we all know that the babes love John, and there was some fatigue from the guys, but some of us did it just right. I got to say that I didn't like the John Cena sucks chants. I really didn't. The only time that I used them, and it's a great memory for me, and my daughter and I were talking about it, that we went to the Money in the Bank here in 2016 when all three members of the Shield had ended up holding the title. Dean Ambrose won the case that night, and after Roman beat Seth, then Dean, now John Moxley, went after Seth, and so all three guys at one point held the WWE Championship that evening. It's pretty crazy. But she was a big John Cena fan, and he was wrestling AJ Styles that night, and AJ won the match. And I was giving her a little John Cena sucks every once in a while just to pick on her a little bit. But when John lost that match, I made some comment, and she just stared at me kind of like the Miz girl. I mean, she gave me pure laser eyes because John Cena lost. But that's how much the kids love John. I mean, and you can't blame them. I think that love has translated last night. You could hear it. That arena was just going crazy for him, and well deserved. Another shovel though was the Nexus. That's one that I think a lot of people were pretty upset about, that John and the team decided that he was going to go over on the Nexus in that big showdown with them. Another what if moment, because that hurt five or six guys on that. It really did. It was a terrible decision. But otherwise, man, you think about some of the incredible moments he's had. Mark Henry, do you remember the retirement where Mark Henry faked everybody out that he was retiring? And John's in there, shakes his hand, and then Mark just smashes him. Man, wearing that salmon coat. I mean, what a great moment that John was a part of there. John losing to Rob Van Dam at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Just with a ton of fans there just ready to rip him apart and riot if he lost or if he won. That was a terrific. The feud with Kevin Owens and with Kevin coming up from NXT and beating John right away. That was absolutely amazing. The wild stuff with Edge. And of course, all the other matches with Bray Wyatt. Daniel Bryan. People forget about it. That was a match of the year with John and Daniel. The Rusev feud with Rusev coming out on the tank to try and take the U.S. title. The AJ Styles feuds were unreal. Beat up by Brock Lesnar. I was at the Raw here in town after that dismantling that Brock put on him. Well, and John put him over, and not only put him over, but boy, he ate like 18 German suplexes or something like that. One that I didn't like was when Rey Mysterio won that tournament to win the World Championship, and John came out and challenged him for it immediately and ended Rey Mysterio's world title run. And then that was when CM Punk came out and returned. But speaking of CM Punk, I mean, that that match at Money in the Bank with CM Punk winning the WWE Championship and disappearing for a little while. I mean, what an incredible match that was. You cannot say enough about, and you can't say enough about what John did in that match. That he put Punk over, that he maintained his personality. You got Vince and that scumbag Johnny Ace just in his face. You're going to get fired if you don't beat him and all this kind of garbage. But that match was one of the iconic matches in WWE history. You think about the battles with the Miz and the relationship that they had. And that was great that, by the way, last night the Miz at least got to be on the card and make an appearance. That was good of WWE to do that. Because that's another guy that John elevated over his career. You think about, I still remember the John Cena match with Seth Rollins that Seth accidentally just put John Cena's nose sideways. God, it looked like somebody ran a wrecking ball into the side of his face. That one was messing up John. And that the interesting story was brought up again from Brodus Clay, now known as Tyrus, who they were going to cut their match at WrestleMania, and all of a sudden John was like, man, I got to go to the bathroom. And it ended up giving Brodus Clay and the gang their WrestleMania time. And, that's the kind of guy that John is. He's very philosophical. I think if you follow him on X, it's a lot of the things he puts up there are just really inspirational and thought provoking. Has he been perfect over his career? No, of course not. Nobody is, especially when you're on top, man. That's everybody's gunning for you. You kind of got to watch your back a little bit. But the good that he brought to pro wrestling certainly far, far, far outweighs any of the sins of John Cena per se. Oh my God. God, you guys remember when he proposed to Nikki Bella at WrestleMania? Oh God. I wasn't that big on that move. That turned out to be a bad play. But, John's happily married now and having a good old time. But yeah, of course, and then just the king of the promo. If you could get in the ring and hang with John Cena on a promo, you're good. But do you guys remember what he did to Roman Reigns? Oh, and what he did to The Rock? Oh, there's nobody like him. And and of course, he's had all the success in Hollywood. He did a bunch of bad movies, and he even said that. Yeah, I did some crappy movies. We're going to try and do some different things, and then started getting into doing game shows and stuff like that. He's still one of the executive producers of Wipeout and one of the co-hosts. Peacemaker and so many other things that John is doing. It's just goes to show how talented he is. And you saw, I think, the respect in everybody's eyes when they came out last night to say goodbye to him. Just he's one of a kind. And WWE, man, they got a hard time replacing him. We talked about it a little bit in the last hour. But I got to say, John ended up carrying the team this year. It's going to be interesting to see what they do without him. Because, attendance was declining. TV ratings were declining. How do you replace a John Cena? And I give John a lot of credit. I know Coach was kind of a little harder on him, but I thought he wrestled very well. I thought he did. Even in the heel turn, he adapted a more heelish style in the ring and did a great job. Now, were some of the matches ill-conceived? Yeah. Why have Brock Lesnar beat John Cena up? Now, if the play, and I will say this, if the play is down the road here, maybe at WrestleMania you get Brock and SummerSlam, that's kind of rumored where Brock might be hanging it up. But if you get the man who decimated John Cena a couple times against the man that retired him, that's some long-term stuff. I will accept it and say well played. But it's just been such an amazing career for him, and he's done so many unreal things. And I know Peacock, while they still have the WWE collection, but apparently that's coming down at the end of the year. They're going to shift it all to YouTube. They do have a best of John Cena on there, and I'm looking forward to, if I have a little time, to take a look and watch it. So, relive some moments, guys. I mean, it's going to be fun. And when we look at this tour, like I said, it was up and down. Kind of weird how the heel turn turned out, because it just basically went away. So like somebody waved a magic wand and John was like, "Oh, yeah, I feel better. Not grumpy anymore." All right. And what are we going to do? What are you going to do? But like I said, John just has so many. Oh, one more. And I forgot that I want to remember too. The last man standing match with Batista, where he taped Batista's legs to the ring post. Anybody remember that one? One of the most clever ways to win a last man standing match. Well, you tape the guy's legs to a ring post so he can't stand up. That'll win you the match. Great. Well played, John. Well played. But yeah, what an incredible time. And if you're in the chat box and you have any memories of John Cena, feel free to fire away. We'd love to hear them. But we're going to step back and take a break. And when we return, AEW is continuing their role. Oh, they had some fun this week. Oh, Dynamite was rocking. And that Continental Classic, man, this has turned out to be a good one. So stick around, everybody. We got a whole lot more on the Mark Hoke Show. It's the best in pro wrestling news and entertainment here on KDAWN 101.5 FM. Talk of Las Vegas. We'll be right back.
With the two Jewels of Henderson, the Emerald Island Casino, and the
This is the Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Here again, your host, Mark Hoke.
And we are back on the Mark Hoke Show here on KDAWN 101.5 FM, the talk of Las Vegas. I had asked for people's memories of John Cena, and look, he's done so much. But this one I forgot. Of course, he had a long feud with Alberto Del Rio. And Javon Campbell, 8357, the chat box says, John Cena beat up Alberto Del Rio for hitting Mick Foley's Santa Claus with a car. Yes, he did. Son of a gun. John, that guy was unreal. He would do anything in the ring. Anything. Oh, the Undertaker match. Forgot about that. Yeah, wasn't real happy about that one. They cut that short. It's kind of weird. But look, AEW is also rolling out there as they continue their progression back from that little bit of a valley they were stuck in. We have the new AEW Women's World Champions tournament is over as the Babes of Wrath, Harley Cameron and Willow Nightingale, knock off the Timeless Love Bombs. They are the new AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions. But we also had Hangman Adam Page and Swerve Strickland beat the Ops. Yes, they teamed up. He who burned house down teams with the house owner. And of course, if you remember those matches, yikes, they're a little rough. Staples and screwdriver. Oh, geez. Yeah. But they are apparently now sending a message through beating the Ops team that Samoa Joe, you're next, because the main event at World's End is going to be Swerve Hangman challenging Samoa Joe for the AEW World title. Holy cow. If you aren't hyped for that match, you're not going to get hyped for a match, period. How much fun is that going to be? Oh, I just wonder how bad they're going to beat each other up. I mean, if I was Joe, I would just figure out something to have them hit each other just one time. Let the sparks fly. But it should be an absolutely fascinating main event there at World's End. And also on the card at this point, Chris Statlander is going to get Jamie Hayter. That'll be for the AEW Women's World Championship as the current champ takes on a former champ in Jamie Hayter, who I love. I mean, that is going to be a fun, hard-hitting match. Fun match. You're also getting the semis and the finals for the Continental Classic. So the winner of the two groups will meet the second place person of the two groups. So it'll be 1 versus 2, and we'll cross it over. And what's going on in that tournament? Well, it's funny you should ask. Let's pull it up right now. The Continental Classic has been wild. And first, Darby Allin. Get this story about Darby Allin. He got hurt in the Kevin Knight match, and we all know that Darby has put his body through hell. They had to pull him out of the Continental Classic. They had to pull him out. The report saying, you know what? Just need Darby. You got to take a few weeks off. There's plans for Darby. But he is out and Jack Perry is in. Oh, my God. Did you see the match with Perry and Okada? There was a lot of biting going on at Winter is Coming on Dynamite on Wednesday. One of the bites that took place, Okada bit Jack in the hand, and Jack, while being set up for a tombstone pile driver. Oh, God. I don't even know how to say this. If this was, I know what I'd say if I was on satellite radio right now. But I gotta watch this. He bit him in the happy place. We'll just go there. Franks and Beans just took a chomp. Broke the hold, but he still lost the match. But this Continental Classic is getting really interesting. Claudio Castagnoli had a draw with Takeshita. Right now he's sitting at 7 points, but he has a loss. Orange Cassidy's 1-1. He knocked off Roderick Strong. Let's say Dorada is 1-1. Mox is 1-2. He lost to Takeshita and Claudio. Roderick Strong 0-2 right now. Takeshita 2-0-1. He beat Mox. He beat Strong. Drew with Claudio. In the Gold League, Speedball Mike Bailey. What a match that they had. It was him and Kyle Fletcher. Woo! They lit it up on that one, man. Go back and watch that. But Speedball Mike Bailey is 2-1 with a loss to Pack. Fletcher is 2-1 with the loss to Bailey. Kevin Knight, who beat Darby Allin in a shocker, has now lost 2 in a row to Bailey and Fletcher. Okada is 2-1 as Kyle Fletcher had upset him. You kind of see where this is going. Pack is 1-1. And Jack Perry is officially 1-1. He had to take the Kevin Knight loss from Darby Allin. Or he's 0-2, excuse me, lost to Okada. So Jack Perry's trying to work his way out of that. So your points as of this week, the Blue League, it is Takeshita and Claudio at 7. Mox, Orange Cassidy, and Mascara Dorada at 3. Roderick Strong sitting at 0 right now. The Gold League, it's Speedball, Mike Bailey, Kyle Fletcher, and Okada all at 6. Pack with 3, Kevin Knight with 3, Jack Perry at 0 at the moment. And I got to tell you something. This Continental Classic, they're doing such a fantastic job elevating guys in this. Now, Kevin Knight gets a win on Darby Allin as one example. Mascara Dorada gets the win on Claudio. Claudio gets the win on Mox. I mean, they are, Speedball Mike Bailey gets a win on Kyle Fletcher, who was looking unbeatable for a while. This is going to be fun, guys. I'm curious to see who's going to walk out of this thing. You kind of feel like, I kind of feel like it's going to be, you're going to see Takeshita and Okada eventually have to battle it out at the end because, of course, they're in the non-Callis family, but if you haven't noticed, they really don't enjoy each other's company very much. But I think that's going to be, that may be your final right there. Even though I'll tell you, I'd love to see Claudio win it too. Maybe you get a semifinal with Takeshita and Okada. But how awesome is that going to be? We've also got something that everybody somewhat forgot about. The Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royal is next week. And if you remember properly, Maxwell Jacob Friedman has never lost this thing. 5 years he's kept that ring on his finger. And right now it appears he is going to be back. That is the rumor. He was off filming Violent Night 2. So MJF should be back. And boy, I'll tell you, this AEW championship picture for all these titles, what a terrific job that I think that Tony's done in elevating so many people on the AEW roster to the point where you feel like there's about 15 guys out there that any night could win a championship. You look and just kind of running down a list of legit people that you'd say, yeah, I could see that guy winning a title. Well, Adam Copeland, once he gets back from filming the Percy Night show, Hangman Adam Page. Just running it down here. Let's see. Bobby Lashley, certainly a contender for any championship. Brody King is up there. Claudio Castagnoli, Darby Allin, Eddie Kingston, who just lost that title match to Samoa Joe. He managed to take a chunk out of Joe's hand when he was doing a John Cena tribute. That was a mistake. Jack Perry, a threat. Jay White, once he gets back from his issue with his hand. Josh Alexander, even though he's been losing, is always a contender to win a championship. You've got Okada, you've got Kenny Omega, you've got Takeshita. Kyle O'Reilly just has been getting elevated. Mark Briscoe is in there. You kind of get the point. I'm in the M's, like MJF. Even Shelton Benjamin's looking good. Orange Cassidy always in the mix. Pac has got to be considered next. Powerhouse Hobbs in there. Ricochet has a championship. Roosh, you got Joe, who is the champ. I mean, this is unbelievable when you really think about, and don't forget Will Ospreay, who's on the shelf. Swerve, Hangman. I mean, the list is endless. They have done a great job of giving everybody a point where you don't know who's going to win a match, and that's part of the fun. You know, it was predictable for a while, but now they've done some cool things in AEW. You know, and I think that's part of the problem that we're seeing in WWE is that things have gotten fairly predictable over there. I'm not sure if we're going into the Kevin Nash style of booking or the Vince Russo style of booking. Let's just pretend it's not Vince Russo. I don't want to bust on Kevin. Kevin knows an incredible amount of wrestling. But there's times that I disagree with what he said, just as a fan. You could probably sit me down and say, "Look, this is why," and I'm going to kill you if you don't agree. And yeah, I've been in an airport with Kevin Nash. He's a large dude. I don't want to mess with him, but I think that AEW has done a really good job of mixing it up. As where WWE, it's kind of okay, but a great. This is going to be a lot of fun for AEW over the next year to see who emerges from all of this. But yeah, the Dynamite Diamond Ring should be fun. MJF walks in the door and everybody's going to go nuts. I had a question in the chat box here, and this is interesting too. I know we talked about this a little last week. Does anybody think AEW had a great 2025, have a bright future despite the Warner Bros. Discovery bidding war between Paramount, Skydance, and Netflix? That whole thing. Well, like I said last week, if they're on Netflix for a few years, how does that hurt them? That is a major plus. Oh, if they're part of that Netflix family, great. Sure. I'll be on the number one streaming network on the planet. Okay. Thank you. I think that they would get hurt if a little bit more if the Paramount bid went through. Now, maybe long haul, there's going to be a difficulty with it being on HBO Max / Netflix, because I'm sure that WWE is not going to be very happy about it. The question is, will Netflix, let's just say that this holds up and HBO Max goes over to Netflix. Would Netflix be willing to give WWE the finger? Say, you know what? We're going to put on our streaming channel wherever the hell we want. We paid you a lot of money. But guess what? You don't own Netflix. And it turns out that it's something worth keeping to them. They're going to keep it. Now, this hostile takeover bid by Paramount to try and take over the Warner Brothers Discovery gang. And keep in mind, it's actually, and really shouldn't say Warner Brothers Discovery, because if you remember a few months ago that they split off. So Discovery is now handling all the TV while Warner Brothers is the movies and the streaming. So HBO Max goes under that umbrella, but the TV contract is going to stay intact, and Discovery's got nothing to do with Netflix. Discovery's under the TNT and TBS are under the Discovery Channel or Discovery's purview. So they're fine there. They're fine. Like I said, if you get a 3-year boost being on Netflix, that can't hurt either. That's good. That's good. More people will find AEW. I mean, but if they go to Paramount now, Paramount once again, is with UFC, who is run by TKO, the parent company of WWE. How much influence would TKO have over Paramount? I don't know. Honestly, I think they could wield a little more power with Paramount than they can with Netflix. So, by the way, Two Man also in the chat box says Trump wants Paramount Sky to shut down CNN. I'm cool with that. I was sitting in a restaurant and there was CNN and MS Now on at the same time, and I thought my brain was going to explode. Oy. They were showing the same stuff at the same time, and I was just like, really? Come on. So go for it. Yeah. You guys all know where I stand on that kind of stuff. But yeah, very interesting maneuvers going on the television front there. And speaking of maneuvers, before we go to break, just want to remind everybody, hey man, you got to get on board with the multi-care group. If you need health insurance, well, the open enrollment period's wrapping up here in a couple of days, so you better get that done right now. I need you to give my friend Pat Casal a call at the multi-care group, and he is going to get you taken care of. Man, you wrestlers out there that are independent contractors, better better lock in your insurance and at a reasonable price, because this stupidity with Obamacare, it's going to jack through the roof. It's already been too expensive, and it's going to get worse. Give Pat a call, 702-286-1014. That's Pat Casal at 702-286-1014. He is with the Multi-Care Group. He handles health insurance, life insurance. If you're running a business, he can take care of your employee benefits, the whole deal. So make sure you check that out. Pat Casal at the Multi-Care Group, 702-286-1014. All right, let's take a breather. And when we come back, Vegas made some money. Hoi! Ho-ho! I couldn't have even imagined what is going on with this one. We're going to talk about that. And wow, somebody got to wrestle. Oh my God. I don't know what's going on with that guy, but we'll talk about it. Stick around. Final segment of the Mark Hoke Show coming up.
If a Lenovo computer for your business is on your holiday list, don't shop around. Just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com. It's your last chance to get exclusive deals on the PCs you want for your business, like the ThinkPad X9 14 Aura Edition and Yoga 7i 2-in-1. So avoid all that shopping chaos and price
You're listening to the #1 professional wrestling radio show in Vegas, The Mark Hoke Show. The Mark Hoke Show. Now, here again is Mark Hoke.
Yeah, let's do this one more time. It's been a long week. I got a longer week coming. But I get to have fun and come in here and talk to you guys about pro wrestling. It's just a blast. And thank you all for tuning in wherever you are on KDAWN 101.5 FM, the Talk of Las Vegas, on the Odyssey app, AUDACY. Download that app right now. It is a cornucopia of 220 stations plus all of our great podcasts and everything else, plus all the terrific shows on KDAWN. You know, like when I do the Steve Sanchez show, 6 to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday. You want to get a little politics in? Tune in then. Occasionally you'll hear me on the show. And we are also live streaming at Mark Hoke Show on X, and then the Mark Hoke Show on YouTube and Facebook. Las Vegas has raked it in, everybody. We are killing it. And, you know, whether it's just some high ticket prices or whatever, WrestleMania will probably be adding to this year's total, because last year, believe this or not, the highest grossing stadium in the United States of America was Allegiant Stadium here in Vegas. $81 million gross from October 2024 through September 2025. Wow. We get some big acts in here, man. And you get events like, WrestleMania. Boy, it sure doesn't hurt. But $281 million gross. It is the second highest grossing stadium, only to Wembley. And Wembley has about 20,000+ more seats than Allegiant-ish. So what an accomplishment. So, guys, but, the prices in there, it'll hurt you a little. It could be worse. I'll say that. It could be worse. Now, the ticket prices, those ticket prices sometimes are a little out of hand. But it's a beautiful stadium. I give them a lot of credit. It's a great place. They have maintained that. It opened during the pandemic, and it still looks great. Looks great. It's just too bad that the football team playing in there is not so good. Boy, the Raiders could be headed for the first pick in the draft. I didn't think they were going to suck that bad. Jesus. But a hell of a year here in Las Vegas for Allegiant. I mean, you just think about all the concerts and everything we've had in here. All big acts are coming in here and playing. I think GNR is coming back. God, who else? I know. It's just loaded. But yeah, so congratulations to the Allegiant Stadium team as they continue to kill it. Well, one guy who managed to kill his career, at least at this point, is Andrade. This saga continues, and if you are not aware of what happened, Andrade was released because of, he was a bad boy. Little substance issues and things like that, and WWE sent him packing. But they, fired him just cause. Shows up on AEW TV almost instantly. They introduced him to the Don Callis family, and the WWE's like, whoa, Andrade. El ídolo, he got pulled, and he's under a 1 year no compete clause. 1 year. I'd sue. I don't know what his attorney's doing. But Andrade was allowed to wrestle in Puerto Rico. WWE allowed him. I mean, this is unbelievable. You fire a guy, and then you still have to, as that guy still has to check in with the people that fired him to be able to do his job. It's nuts. WWE had to gave his lawyer permission for him to wrestle in the Puerto Rican promotion of the World Wrestling Council. And he had a shot at the WWC Universal title. Listen to this. I want to say thank you to my lawyer, because my lawyer now has a letter from WWE, because we had some little problems. We had the no compete clause for 12 months. Today, my lawyer texted me and told me that Andrade, I have signed a letter that you can participate tonight in Puerto Rico in the company WWC. I hope back soon to AEW. I don't know when I'm back. For now, the letter is for just this show from Puerto Rico. Jeez. So, Andrade, get another attorney for the love of God. Hey, I'm gonna go do a match in Brussels. Maybe want to do one in Austria. Can I please? You've got for a year? A year. Boy, they made him bending the knee on that one. But yeah, Andrade is he's having some fun. Well, one group that is not having fun, by the way, if you did not see this story, and I still cannot believe that this thing is just continued. Look, this is the Ring Boy scandal from back in the 70s and early 80s. If you're, for those of us really old school, remember the African-American ring announcer, Mel Phillips, who was apparently abusing a bunch of boys that were helping work with him on the ring. Well, that lawsuit is going to continue. So right now, Linda McMahon, Vince McMahon, WWE, TKO are going to proceed to discovery with some amendments to the case following a judge's ruling on December 10th. So 7 of the 8 former Ring Boy plaintiffs will continue with the lawsuit. And there's just a whole list of the allegations and everything else. But that is absolutely nuts. That Ring Boy lawsuit was initially filed in U.S. District Court, District of Maryland, October of 2024. 3 additional former Ring Boys joined the lawsuit in 25, and that is still going on. Alleged that Phillips groomed, exploited, and sexually abused underage WWE Ring Boys, while some of the Ring Boys have also alleged they were sexually abused by Coco Beware. Oh, I don't know about that. And Pat Patterson. So they used to help set the ring up in the WWE events in the 80s and 90s and worked under Terry Garvin. So, wow. That lawsuit is still going. Good luck. That's going to be a wild one. We also had a couple other little stories. LA Knight, of course, we saw him get attacked and by the Vision, got tsunamied on a car. And LA Knight is apparently going to be off TV for a while. They're saying that they just want to give him a cooling off period and then turn him loose, that they do see him as one of the top baby faces of the company. I don't know if I'm buying it. Look, they have booked him so badly. If they bring him back, then it better be time. It better be time. But geez, is it, look, do you all see LA Knight as a world championship material? I do. I know he could do it. I know he can do it. But there is a lot of debate amongst fans of whether LA Knight should be a world champ or not. We're going to find out. But LA Knight off TV, and ironically, there's more TV, is SmackDown. They have announced that it will be 3 hours starting on January 2nd. Yay! I don't think anybody wants 3 hours of SmackDown. They have enough trouble writing material for 2. That is just absolutely nuts. But they announced it on Friday's edition that SmackDown will be 3 hours again, starting on that January 2nd show out of Buffalo at the Keyspan Arena. So saying it's temporary, and they think it's going to be about 6 or 7 months. But I can't imagine that WWE is really excited about doing that. Get some ad revenue out of it, I suppose. But that's nuts. I mean, look, Raw 3 hours is hard enough. But, and then, of course, we talked about the story earlier that they're looking to try and make some changes in talent. They're trying to make some changes in the writing team for SmackDown. I just think that's a mistake. Said, but what do I know? What do I know? I've only been watching wrestling for 40 years. No clue about anything. And yeah, I think, and one more thing real quick. There was a rumor that Montez Ford was the second Black Mongolian stomper in there. He was not. It was not Montez Ford, apparently. They have not revealed who it was. Austin Theory was the first masked man to do a stomp, but apparently last week's show, it was not Montez Ford. Have not confirmed who it was, but still leaving the Austin Theory spot open. But another rumored name of who that person is going to end up being is Chris Jericho. Really? Chris Jericho leading division. I suppose the learning tree will just hop over to WWE. Hi! But we are going to say goodbye. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Just a blast doing this show. 251 episodes in the books and more to come as we bring you the best in pro wrestling here on KDAWN. Give us a follow on X at Mark Hoke Show, Facebook, The Mark Hoke Show. Subscribe to us on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show. Always appreciated. Guys, I hope you have a terrific day. And, man, we're getting ready for Christmas. So, it's unbelievable. One more show before Christmas time. So be safe out there in Las Vegas. The drivers are nuts, and it's only going to get worse for all the Christmas shoppers. So take it easy, guys. We'll see you next week on The Mark Hoke Show, everybody. Have a great day in Las Vegas.
Want more of The Mark Hoke Show? Follow us on Twitter at Mark Hoke Show, like us on Facebook at The Mark Hoke Show, and visit markhokeshow.com to keep up with everything happening with the show. And remember to check out all of our archive shows on YouTube at The Mark Hoke Show and download our podcasts at markhokeshow.podbean.com and all your favorite podcast outlets. So join The Mark Hoke Show family today, and thanks for listening.